Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, you guys might remember earlier this week, I shared an article with you guys. It was a report from a journalist named Roger Sollenberger, and he was talking about how the DOJ is hiding documents. This is related to a woman, one of the women who has accused Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein of assaulting her when she was about 13 years old. Well, this story has now blown up and we've got new reporting, we've got new details. So it's now being reported by several major news outlets. And I'm talking from like the left, leaning New York Times, you got all the way over to the right wing Wall Street Journal. So here is the Wall Street Journal's article. And they're saying that the DOJ is very concerned about this. The DOJ is very concerned that there were omissions, and they've promised they're going to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, I'm sure they will. And I want you guys to look, when I saw this article and this photo, I don't know if you guys can make it out, but the photo is of Jeffrey Epstein, and he is on a subway, and there's a photo behind him. There's a like a warning, and it says, this is the most perfect photo ever taken of him. It says, "Don't be a target of opportunity." Like, this is a public service announcement behind his head. Oh my God. That is just chef's kiss. That is perfect. Like, that should have been the warning label that they tattooed on this guy's forehead. Anyway, back to the subject. So, according to all of the news outlets, there are over 50 pages that are missing that are related to this woman's allegations. And so over 50 pages missing from the 3 million that they just released. And part of what is missing, or it could be all of what's missing, we don't know, are the interviews that she had with the FBI. So as I had shared with you guys, there was one document, which was some handwritten notes from the FBI agent who spoke with her, and they released that. So we saw that, I shared that with you guys, but they have never released the subsequent notes, any of the accompanying documents, like the 302, which is the official FBI report that they draft. And we know this, we know that they did not do this. And the way that Sollenberger and others have figured this out is because journalists went and they cross-referenced DOJ documents that were released with, as discovery items to Ghislaine Maxwell, to her legal team. This was in advance of her trial. So they can see those documents were released to her. They can't see what's in them, but they can, based on the, tracking codes and things like that, they can see that she was given these documents, but they're not included in what was just released by the FBI or by the DOJ. So everybody's going, okay, why can't we see them? And unfortunately, everything that they gave to Maxwell is still under seal. The court has that sealed. And Maxwell has been fighting for a while to keep everything sealed. Like, she's so innocent, she doesn't want this information out there either. So she's fighting in court to keep everything about her trial under wraps. And think about this. This woman's allegations were so credible that the government handed these things over to Maxwell's defense team as part of their case against her. And then I want to clear something up. There's some confusion about this woman and her claims. So number one, this is not the woman who goes by the alias of Katie Johnson. This is a second woman. This is someone else who is accusing Trump of violating her as a child. We know that it's not the same person because the allegations and the story are very different. So Katie Johnson and her witness, they each provided sworn testimony. And they each said that Katie Johnson was approached in New York. She was approached by the woman who ultimately became her witness. That woman was acting as a recruiter for Epstein. And she admitted that, yeah, I, came across Katie Johnson, whatever her real name is. I lured her to Epstein by promising her that he could get her into modeling. She would have a modeling career. This other woman, the one who's we now know that her documents are missing, she told the FBI that how she met Epstein was her parents were trying to, I guess, get her a job or something. So they responded to an ad from someone who was supposedly looking for a babysitter. And this was not in New York. This was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like North Carolina or South Carolina, somewhere along the East Coast. Okay. She said she shows up for this so-called babysitting gig and she realizes, oh, this is a scam. There was no wife. There were no kids. It was just Jeffrey Epstein and he assaulted her. And then I want to add more context to the story, which proves that she's telling the truth. So first of all, as I mentioned the other day, this woman received a settlement from Epstein's estate. That was reported by Sullenberger. So they believed her enough to pay her off. She should probably, I would assume, had evidence and showed it to them and proved that, yeah, I was victimized by him. Also, as I mentioned, the FBI released one set of documents, but not the other three. So the FBI interviewed her 4 separate times. And she had an attorney, right? So are there some shady attorneys out there? Yes, but are most attorneys going to waste their time and take on a case if they don't believe someone? No. And the FBI definitely does not waste time and sit with someone 4 freaking times unless there's some reason to believe that the story is credible. There's also the fact that the FBI noted that this woman was reluctant to talk about Trump at first. She showed them a photo of Trump with Epstein, and she said, oh, can we crop Trump out? And then her attorney mentioned, oh, she kind of fears retaliation. So her allegations against Trump came up over time. She initially went to the FBI or submitted her tip and then spoke with them, but it was only about Epstein. And it was only after he was arrested in 2019. And then there's also this other report from Roger Sullenberger that kind of, I don't know if corroborate is the right word, but it helps to solidify her accusations. So check this out. So earlier this week, Sullenberger published a follow-up story. And he said in it, quote, the FBI appears to have approached the accuser about a criminal investigation or potential prosecution against Trump, but she refused to cooperate. Okay, refused to cooperate is in quotes. Those were the words of the FBI. They wrote that in their notes. Or in an email. And then he went on to quote 2 independent journalists who reported this. It says, this woman appears to have had a unique status in the Epstein case. No other victim or witness in the DOJ's full Epstein case file index is marked protect source. That is in quotes, capitalized. Any victim or witness in this case would have a reason to fear retaliation from any number of wealthy, powerful, well-connected men. Only one of them, the Trump accuser, appears to have this note next to her name, which the DOJ still managed to publish. So Sullenberger had reported that they either accidentally or purposely published this woman's name initially, and then they went back and redacted it. I think you guys will probably remember they had published a bunch of the victims' names. Some of the victims think that it was done on purpose to try to shut them up. Like, hey, we can expose you, we can show the world who you are. People are going to come after you. You're going to get death threats. Do you really want that? Do you really want to keep pushing this? So that's what the victims think. So I don't know if they did this purposely and exposed this woman's name purposely, or if it was truly an accident. But yeah, they published her name and then redacted it later. But I want to go back to this, protect source thing, this note that they put by her. They found this woman to be so credible that they wrote protect source on her files. And remember, she spoke with the FBI in July of 2019, like a week after, roughly, after Epstein was arrested in 2019. And then they spoke with her 3 additional times over the course of July, August, and then I believe her last interview with them was like in October or November of that year, so after Epstein had died. But she gave them quite a bit of information in at least 2 interviews before Epstein was found dead in his cell. Again, Donald Trump and Bill Barr, his hand-picked lapdog attorney general at the time, were both in charge of the Bureau of Prisons. Just so happens, when Epstein is found dead in his cell, we don't have the actual rope or bed sheet or whatever it was he used to put around his neck. That just so happened to have vanished. The guards just happened to have fallen asleep. The cameras just happened to not have been working. There happens to be a few minutes missing from the surveillance video taken from that night. There just happens to be a shadowy figure walking up the steps in an orange prison jumpsuit right around the time that Epstein allegedly took his own life. And this is something I haven't brought up before. They just happen to have pretended to take Epstein's body out. And we're now finding out from the release of these documents from the DOJ that they took out a fake body. We now know this for a fact. They apparently were for some reason trying to hide his body from the press. So they arranged a bunch of boxes underneath a sheet, and they rolled that out the front door. And that is what the press ended up following. The press ended up following that vehicle with the boxes under a sheet. And then they took Epstein's body, quote unquote, out a back door after they, led the press on a wild goose chase. Why would you do that? Why was it? I mean, everybody knew Epstein was there. Everybody knew it, he supposedly was dead. Why did you have to fake a body? Does that make any sense? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, when you start to hear people going, maybe he's still alive, and then you hear something like this, you're like, I mean, it's plausible, right? Why else would they fake a body? And then here's the thing. If the government gave these documents to Maxwell, then clearly they're not lost, right? I mean, they have them. They have them somewhere. They could easily just load them onto the website right now with all of the other documents that they released. Unless they have something to hide. Why do you need to look into it? Oh gosh, we're going to get to the bottom of this and why these interviews with this Trump accuser weren't released with everything else. Oh, gosh, we don't know what happened to them. Oh, we do. You gave them to Ghislaine Maxwell. Just go get a copy and load them so that we can all read them. So all of this directly contradicts what Pam Bondi said during her embarrassing testimony before Congress. Her whole, the Dow, right? He hasn't been exonerated. He hasn't been cleared of anything. I mean, just because this woman refused to cooperate, that doesn't make Trump innocent. If anything, it makes him look more guilty, right? Because why was she so afraid to cooperate? She went and met with him 4 times. Why didn't she want to cooperate? And there could have been some witness intimidation going on. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that, or anything, we all haven't thought. Maybe that's why she didn't want to cooperate. Maybe Trump found out from his DOJ that had been meeting with her and taking her, reports and writing down everything she said. Stormy Daniels, somebody went after her. She's talked about this before, how she was going to the gym. She had her baby with her. And some guy comes out of nowhere and tells her to back off of Trump. So did that happen to this woman? And then this story also proves Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all of them are full of shit. All of them are covering for Trump. They said no one else was implicated, no one else to investigate. Oh, if we had evidence of a crime of any other man with a child, we would go after it. We would investigate. What did you do with this? Did you investigate? What is the conclusion that you reached with this case and this woman? Haven't heard anything. So anyway, guys, there you go. Just more and more piling up against Donald Trump. I will let you know if I hear any more. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.